So what we're going to do today is go through and look at our shop floor insight add-on for collecting shop floor data, so labor, material, that sort of thing. And it's suitable for anybody that needs to talk to people about labor collection or shop floor data reporting with their clients, or do implementations or anything like that. And again, ask questions as we're going through if you have any. So what we'll do is, I'm going to burn through this PowerPoint hopefully fairly quickly, so that a demo, so we can see more of the software than a PowerPoint. But I am just going to go through a little bit of stuff here on the screen first, just to give you a little bit of background on the product. All right, so let's start off with InsideWorks, who we are. So we have a number of add-ons for NAV. We work with those globally. Lots of different resellers. If you're not a reseller, it's easy to get engaged with us. After this, if you're interested, just drop us a line. We are based in Canada. We do have offices in the United and in Australia as well. A few sample customers, of course. I always choose the big guys we work with there, and we have some significant projects with these guys. Small facility here or there with them. These are fairly large projects we do with some of these larger companies out there. Okay, I'll skip that for now. The products, our product line is essentially what you see here. We have some other products or other tools in NAV that we can provide to partners occasionally, things like enhanced planning worksheets, various little things like that. Some of them are on our website, but this is generally our product line. We recently did webinars on Warehouse Insight and the Advanced Inventory Count. If you're interested in that, let us know and we can get you a recording of that. Today we're going to focus on the shop floor insight, of course, so I won't spend too much time on here. Dynamic Ship is an integrating shipping package for NAV, so it'll integrate with FedEx, UPS, international carriers, all of that sort of thing. We've got about 100 different carriers we integrate with, and very good value for the money, very good price point. We have a webinar on that coming up next week, so a week from today. Very worth attending if you ever deal with anybody that needs to do shipping via one of those sort of small package carriers or LTL or anything like that. We do have a payroll system if you're in Canada, integrated payroll with NAV and Dynamics 365, so that's available. And that one I'm not going to go through, but it integrates very tightly with our shop floor insight as well. So any labor or time and attendance information we capture through this tool, we can feed into the payroll or whatever the payroll system you have. We do have a point of sale system. So this is like point of sale light. It's for manufacturers that maybe have a parts counter or something like that, where you don't need a full-blown point of sale, but you need a lot more than what basic NAV offers, and that's where we fit in with that. The sales configurator, actually a pretty decent configurator. It allows you to build BOMs, routings, assembly BOMs, those types of things, either from a quote or directly from the BOM designer. And it'll generate that bill of materials and routing for you automatically. This is a free tool. It's a drag and drop tool, so you can drag and drop from your email or from the file system onto any card page in NAV. So there's no modifications required to NAV. So you can go on our site or go to navextender.com, download that sucker, run it, and you can drag and drop into NAV, and it's a 5 or 10 minute install tops, and you're up and running with no NAV modifications. And the last one, the planning and scheduling tool. So this does allow us to do advanced planning and scheduling. It's a higher end solution. So there are other scheduling tools out there in the market. If those aren't working for you, or if they're not going to meet the requirements, then this guy here is what you need to actually generate realistic schedules for the shop floor. And these two, I didn't actually notice this before, but this sort of diagonal line, these three are all sort of related. So anytime you're doing this advanced planning and scheduling, we're often integrating with the shop floor so that we get the real-time feedback to make sure that the schedule is updated appropriately every time you run it. All right, as I said, shop floor insight is what we're talking about today. A few little bullet points on it. So really what this allows me to do is any sort of labor activity I can capture on the shop floor. So that includes time it comes in for the day, when they leave for the day, any breaks they take, that type of thing. And then again, on the shop floor for capturing time against production orders or service orders or jobs or assets or any sort of custom code you want to define for non-productive time or rework or first aids or whatever you want to do. So, those are at a high level, those are the two things, the time and attendance and the shop floor data collection. We can also do consumption, output, and a number of other things. So for more detail, these are, it's a high level overview of some of the capabilities that you get with the system. So the key ones I mentioned, time and attendance. So again, gets rid of the punch clock, everything's integrated into NAV. And based on that information, so when people clock in and clock out, we can calculate overtime, shift premiums, those types of things, and actually integrate with payroll systems to send it that summarized data. Okay, so it eliminates all that manual entry related to payroll. This time and attendance piece also supports facial recognition. So you can either scan with a barcode or a key fob or something like that. And we have facial recognition where you could just walk up to the terminal and it clocks you in for the day. Okay. The barcoded labor collection is the one that obviously most people are eager to get because there's a high rate of return on that. And again, production orders, service orders, jobs, assets, all those different things that we can capture via barcoded labor collection. We also do manual time entry for engineering or salaried personnel that work in the office. Manually enter that.
Hey, Mark.
Sorry, is there? Yeah.
No, it's all good, actually. Sorry, there was just one question, which I thought was a good question. Someone was just asking about the relationship between Shop Floor Insight and Time Collection Module, or TCM. Do you want to just comment on that?
Yeah. So same thing. TCM is Time Collection Module, and that is what we used to call it. So Shop Floor Insight is the new name for it. Otherwise, it's essentially the same thing. Okay. However, Shop Floor Insight, when we released the latest version and rebranded it, we did add a number of additional, coincided with a number of additional modules, such as the quality module. So now there's a quality inspection module built in, and you can use that for production orders in the shop floor interface, or you can use it for inspections on receiving or inspections on shipping, or maybe you want to put an inspection on an employee record, or you have a custom table in the system and you want to put an inspection on one of the records in the custom table. It can do all of that. It's built to be very extensible in NAV. So that, that inspection module, I'll talk a little bit more about it in the demo. It's really just inspections. It doesn't do engineering change requests or nonconformance reporting. So ECRs and NCRs, if you need that in NAV, there's add-ons out there that do it. Otherwise, you can use share document linking and those sorts of things to manage your NCRs and ECRs from within SharePoint and NAV. So quality inspections is a new module. Another one that is coming out. We've actually had it for a few years. We've just kind of hidden the button for the most part. So we've had this prototype available for several years now, and we're actually going to formally release it in 2018. So we actually have a visual dispatch list. So it's a drag and drop scheduling tool built right into the system as well. So Shop Floor Insight includes all the barcoded labor collection, quality inspection, visual scheduler, other things you see here. Safety logbook is a underappreciated module which allows you to manage your health and safety program from within NAV. So all of this kind of stuff is included within the system. And so how much something like this? $99.99? Well, it's less than that. So pricing, we're changing our pricing model a little because we found that it was either too cheap or too expensive depending on the size of the company. So what we've done is we've changed it to employee-based pricing. So now it's really related to how many people are going to be using the system is what they pay for. We toyed with station-based pricing, and we can be flexible if there's people out there that want to do station-based pricing instead. We can do that, but right now it's employee-based. And we're quoting this now, though technically it's only effective in January. But you can go ahead and quote this type of thing. And the perpetual licensing, we're looking at a $3,000 base cost, and then $60 per employee, and then of course annual enhancement to 16%. So what that means is if you're a smaller shop and you've got 25 people that are going to be recording time or consumption or output or whatever they're doing out there, you're looking at about $4,500 for that upfront, plus enhancement, of course. If you're a 100 employee shop, you're looking at $9,000 for that system. And so it allows us to target, you know, the really smaller guys. So if you're a 10-person shop, that's even cheaper. You're looking at $3,600 for this. And again, I'm just going to back up a slide. 10-person shop, $3,600. This is what you're getting. Almost malpractice not to sell the thing at that price, right? Because you know, everybody's going to use a portion of that. Any manufacturer is going to use something in the system, and for $3,600, it's just you can't beat it, right? If you're a smaller shop. When we get into the larger shops, that's where we start charging a little more base pricing, because we want to charge what value the people are going to get out of it. Subscription, I always get asked about. We're still sort of evaluating what the market will bear for. If you have any feedback on that, it would be good to know. But generally, what we're targeting now is roughly a 3-year, break-even period compared to buying it outright, 3.5. So, for example, if using that formula that we're currently looking at, you know, a 25-employee shop would be looking at roughly $170 a month for all their employees to be on subscription, and a 100-employee shop would be looking at roughly $330 a month for all their employees. And again, that's about a 3.5-year break-even point. So that's kind of what we're targeting, but we haven't formalized that subscription pricing yet. But just to give you an idea of where, sort of where we're going with it.
Hey,
now, in addition, sorry,
Mark, I got 3 questions here, if you don't mind me interrupting. One is, Jim's asking, is it priced as a named user?
No, it's actually I lie. Yes, it's priced as a named user, so it's a TCM employee, we call it. So any employee that's defined in the system for payroll or shop floor purposes is considered an employee, and it costs you $60. Okay. So it has nothing to do with NAV user count or anything like that. It's the number of employees you have defined that are going to be, entering time or information into the shop floor insight system.
Okay. Bruce is asking if the $60, is that per user or total licenses?
Well, it's per employee, so that $60 is per employee. So if I have, again, 25 people in the shop that are going to be doing scanning, then I need it's a $60 per employee in the shop. Okay. Not concurrent. If I have, employees and they work 2 shifts and there's 10 people on each shift or whatever, it's still considered 25 employees. Okay, so it's basically named employee.
Okay, and then so I think that covers Kevin's question of whether is this employees on the shop floor only, correct?
Yeah, anybody that's entering time into shop floor insight, because you can do manual time entry. So if you have, you want your salaried personnel to do time cards, or if you have hourly people working in the office and you want them to do time cards, but they're entering the information into NAV instead of the shop floor, they're still considered an employee.
Okay.
So anybody that's creating time cards within the system is considered an employee.
Okay. I've got 2 more questions for you regarding the NAV license. Does it require a NAV license, full or limited?
I'm not telling you. That's the next slide.
Okay. Wait for the next slide, Sarah. And then Scott's asking, would we need enough base NAV user licenses to cover each employee if they have no other reason to be a NAV?
So that's also kind of the next slide. So I'll skip to the next slide right now and cover those 2 questions.
Okay, can I just ask you, sorry, can I just ask you the third one, just so you know what it is? How do you handle a seasonal workforce? Lawrence is asking that. So if you could cover that as well.
Yeah, so the seasonal workforce, you would have to have enough user or employee licenses to cover off the number of people that are going to be doing, the time entry. So if I have 100 people working over the summer and then 10 in the winter, you're going to need 100 licenses. You're going to need the number of licenses for the maximum number of employees. That would be a good option for subscription-based licensing, where every couple months you could raise or lower the number of licenses that you want people to use, right? So in the summer, if you have 100 people working for that period of time on subscription, you bump up the license count, and when they're gone, you drop the license count down on subscription to the lower amount. So that would be a good candidate for subscription. All right, for the nav licensing side of it. So we're each terminal. So if you have these fixed terminals out in the shop floor, so if I have 20 terminals out on the shop floor, 20 stations, what I need is I need a nav limited user license for each concurrent station. So I've got 20 stations out there, but there's only 5 ever used really simultaneously. I would need 5 limited user licenses for nav. So everything that talks to nav in real time or even batch needs that nav user license. So we are stuck with requiring the nav user license. But it is a limited license, so our tables are included in the limited user license. So they're part of the nav licensing. And that's it. If they're logging their time in nav, so if they're logging into nav and doing time cards in nav instead of the shop floor client, same thing. They'd need a limited user license for the period of time that they're in nav. Right. All right, I'm guessing there might be more questions on that, so interrupt me if there's anything else on the nav user licensing.
Sure, it's right now.
Okay. So it's the standard nav concurrent user licensing model for this, but it's not each individual employee. It's based on the terminals that they're logging into. Okay. Implementation costs. The install, in the new version, it's down to, if we do it 15 minutes or so to actually import and merge the objects, it'll all be going to extensions eventually. But we touch hardly anything of base nav. So it's really about a 15-minute install for us to actually get this thing up and running. It takes more time just to, get the right access to the system to actually do the install. So we normally say a day or two to do one where we're not doing any sort of payroll integration. If we want to add the payroll integration piece, which includes time and attendance, and then we're usually having to deal with people in finance and that sort of thing, we're usually adding about a day. It could be a couple of days depending on how complex their rules are and that sort of thing. But we're usually adding about a day for the payroll piece. So if they're doing time and attendance and shop floor, we're typically in about the 3-day range. I normally say budget 5 days, and we'll come in under almost every single time. But that's kind of what we're looking at. Now, as far as engagement with partners, you're free to do all of that yourself once you're up to speed. We have several partners that do the installs all themselves. But this implementation includes, the merge, the training, the initial configuration, the support, all of that kind of stuff. When we talk about hardware, if we go back to, I've got 20 stations out there. Each one of those stations is going to cost them about $300 to $400. And I'll talk about the hardware options in a bit here, but it's just commodity stuff. If they got a closet full of old Windows XP machines, they could throw them out there, and it doesn't cost them a cent, right? So, okay. Now, after all those costs, why would somebody do this? So we've got a couple of ROI calculators available. There's one in Excel that I can send you that you can just plug it into Excel and email it around. And there's another one that's actually on the website that you can send prospective clients to, or actually do it yourself and then print out the results of that to include in a proposal or whatever you like. So I'll just actually jump into that ROI calculator, and we'll see how we would use it. So this is the one on the web, so you can just go into our website, and there's a link to it there. And it allows us to come in and specify a bunch of different parameters for the shop floor. Now this is very production related, but I mean you can substitute jobs or whatever in here. And you'll just enter the number of employees, how many production orders they have, that sort of thing. And there's some basic calculations here that will go through and give you the estimated payback period. And this button here will allow you to adjust this. So this is saying, how long does it take an employee to type in time from an operation? So they got to choose, the production order, the work center, maybe the machine center for that particular person, all of that kind of stuff, and enter it in. Well, the default is set here to 15 seconds, a quarter of an hour, but maybe that only takes them, 6 seconds, and maybe this portion only takes them 15 seconds and so on. So you can go in and manipulate these and the wages and everything, and that'll update the result down here. So this is, fairly basic calculations and actually very accurate. We see, when we actually plug this in after an implementation, we can actually see that these numbers are actually pretty close to realistic. And if you want to get rid of things like, that are fairly subjective, like quality savings and gains in market share, I mean, you can pull these out, and just strictly on the time savings from office staff, huge benefit, right? Really, from the time somebody clocks in the morning till they get their pay stub, nobody has to touch any data, no manual entry, nothing in NAV or payroll. That's what the thing brings to the table. Okay. All right, so ROI calculation, we usually see less than a year payback period. So, and with the new pricing, it's, you know, it's just a no-brainer. All right.
Mark, just excuse me, just jumping back to the NAV licensing real quick. Just a question from Roger asking, what will a limited user license post the journals in NAV?
Good question. No, because limited users can't post. So we'll look at how it does consumption and output in a sec when we get into the demo. Because it's a limited user, it won't post. If you wanted to post immediately for shop floor, you'd have to switch that particular terminal to a full user license. The other options that we've seen people do, and it's maybe a bit of a gray area with Microsoft licensing, but maybe not. What a lot of people do is set up a job queue that posts, you know, every minute or something like that, and set it up like that. But a lot of people actually want a human to review that consumption or output before. So those are the couple of the options, three of the options I guess you have. One is a human reviews it and posts it. Another one is there's a job queue that runs periodically to post it behind the scenes. And the third one is you switch that particular terminal to a full user license because they're doing posting immediately. All right, on the hardware options, again, we can use pretty much anything. I'll skip this and just go to the pictures because they're prettier. So tablets, often a little bit smaller. Yep, sorry.
Sorry, we've still got questions coming through. Sorry to interrupt, but you know how it goes.
No problem.
Can we defer licensing pricing issues to the end and concentrate on what the product does? Oh, I see, and not how much.
Sorry, that's a good question. That's like, shut up, Mark. Get talking about the product. But yeah, we actually get we always get questions on the Microsoft licensing and everything else. All right, so the hardware stuff, you know, this thing's about the size of a chocolate bar, a full computer. These guys are thin clients. You know, this is the type of stuff that you normally want to put on the shop floor because it's got no moving parts. Industrial touch screens are also possible. It actually works really nicely on touch screens, and a little USB barcode scanner. So, you know, these are the different types of hardware options. Like I said, an old PC that's running Windows XP, that type of thing is all good as well. Okay. Anything that runs a browser. Here's just a quick picture of one. This is actually one of our first installs. This is about 9 years old. So this is a thin client here, and it's been sitting in that box for about 9 years, just running day in, day out. And you can see the barcodes here that the guy is scanning. So he's got a laminated sheet for some of the standard codes he's going to scan, like, you know, asset maintenance or, you know, various things that work centers and things like that. Okay. But that's kind of what a terminal could look like. They've built an aluminum case to house it, but you know, that probably has never been opened in 9 years or so, 9 or 10 years. All right, and then this is kind of the barcodes that we're looking at. So this is a badge report that prints out of NAV to allow people to scan. So the typical approach is I scan my badge to identify myself, and then I'll scan an operation or a job task or a job planning line or an asset or whatever I'm doing to actually start tracking time against that specific activity. Okay, so these are, you know, similar to the things I'm going to be using in the demo. So without any further ado, let's jump into the demo. So what you see on the screen here is the shop floor interface. Okay, so this is what people will use to actually track time against activities. There's also the time clock interface, and what this will normally run on a little Windows tablet. You buy an 8-inch Windows tablet for $100, stick it by the change room. People walk up, they can scan their badge to clock in. So I can come in here and I can say, you know, walk up, scan my behind me, scans their badge, and very quickly can scan in and out. This is also the one that has the facial recognition available, so they can just walk up, look at the screen, and it'll clock them in or clock them out based on that. Okay, so that's the time clock interface. The shop floor interface runs in a web browser, again, runs on a thin client, Chrome box or whatever, out on the shop floor. And the way it works is I'll come up with my badge, I'll unlock the terminal with my badge, so I'll scan my barcode, and what it does is it shows me my time card to start with. And it's blank because I haven't done anything yet today. Okay. The other option is when people scan in, either based on the work center that they scan in at, or their actual configuration. It could also show the dispatch list. So I'll just scan another barcode here and switch users. And now I see a job dispatch list, which shows me all the jobs and the assignments and everything else that I can actually clock into. And this is useful or if you don't have a shop floor traveler, where you just want somebody to clock in, tap the screen on this and then say clock on and start tracking their time. But for people that have the shop floor travelers, the barcode is by far the most effective way of doing it. So I just scan my badge again, so I'm back in as myself and back on my time card. And so what I would do as an employee is I'd walk up to the terminal, scan my badge to unlock it. I'll scan the activity I'm going to work on, and then I walk away and do my work. And then this thing will lock after 30 seconds or whatever you set it to, or I can simply scan my badge to lock the terminal again. So again, the process is I walk up, scan my badge, scan what I'm working on, go off, do my work. Later on, I'm done that particular activity. I come back, I scan my badge, and I scan the next activity I'm working on. And let's say this time it's a job task or something like that. Is it'll come in and it'll automatically calculate the elapsed time between those activities. And this is in hours, but you can set it up to be hours or minutes or whatever you want it to be. And you can also set it up so that people can manually enter their time. So I've got a hybrid where it calculates the elapsed time, but just using the arrow key, I can go up there and adjust my time if I want. So you have lots of options there. At this point, I often get questions, can I have somebody clocked into more than one operation at a time? And the answer is yes, and I can have multiple people clocked into the same operation. So what that allows me to do is, have one person running multiple machines, and then I can track machine time and labor time independently. I can also do batching, which means that I can scan multiple production orders simultaneously. So let's say I have a plasma cutter or something like that, or a paint booth, where I up 5 or 10 production orders into the system at a time. I can scan all of those production orders, run the operation, and at the end clock off the batch, and it'll automatically split the time across all the production orders. So it's very capable from a an efficiency point of view, tracking that time. Yeah, I think that's. We can also do things like capture non-productive activities. So for example, if I've got, after that, I'm just going to do some cleanup. These you can define to be whatever you want: first aid, cleanup, waiting for work, all of that sort of thing. So those are all by the customer. The other thing I can do, which is kind of a nice capability, is here I've scanned this particular operation, and let's say I actually have to rework this operation because I sent it off. I did chain the next thing, and it came back because the chain was broken. To rework this thing, and I want to track my time against that production order in that operation, but I want to flag this as some exceptional type of time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to scan a root cause barcode, and you'll notice this changed to now blame sales for this rework. They sold the wrong type of chain, and so now I'm having to take it apart and put the right chain on it. So that could be any type of root cause you want. It could be a vendor number to blame a specific vendor for material issues. It could be generally different departments or whatever you want to help track that. And then what we have to assist with sort of the analysis of this is we do have some Jet Express reports available with the system. There's one for costing and one for sort of the operational stuff. And I'll just walk through this real quick. So basic stuff like productivity analysis that we can grab out of it. If you're using the payroll integration, we can track, overtime versus regular time, that sort of thing. But this is the one here that sort of relates to the rework. So if I have rework broken up into multiple different root causes, I can very easily get a nice chart here that shows me all the root causes of that rework, and I can help identify where my issues are in the shop. So this can actually save a ton of money, right? If you go in there and you're able to say, geez, it's always welding and it's always on this shift that's causing my extra time, oh, it's this guy needs better training or whatever. So you can really drill down into the root causes and save some money. Okay, so that's there's big value in that. All right, so from a time entry perspective, like I said, we can also do fixed assets. service orders, jobs, production orders, all that kind of stuff, all in the same time card. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clock out, lock the screen, and then come back in. And the reason is it just collapses everything, makes it a little easier to read. So if I want to go back to a previous one, I can just use the arrow keys and the enter key to come back in and look at other older entries, but this collapses it. And what I'm going to do is show you some of the other capabilities. So I'm going to scan another operation here. And incidentally, we track setup time and runtime. There's a different barcode for each, so I can scan one for runtime, one for setup. And you notice I only scan a single barcode, and that single barcode identifies the operation number, the production line number, and the production order. So it makes it very easy on the people on the shop floor to scan in. We can record output, scrap, all that kind of stuff on the line. So this is for WIP operations. If you want to track, completion, piece count bonuses, any of that kind of stuff, we can track it here. We can also do full output. So if it's the finished goods output, we can come in here and actually record finished goods output. It keeps a history. If this was a serialized lot tracked item, I could also define the lot numbers and serial numbers here if I wanted to do that. So for example, I could output 10 serial numbers and list the starting serial number, and it'll generate all the serial numbers in NAV form. And again, as per the previous question, when I register this, that's going to put it on the output journal, and either JobQ is going to have to post it, or a human is going to have to go in there and review it before posting, or run this guy as a full user license. Okay. Now, besides output, we've also got consumption. So over here we see bill of materials. So this is everything on the BOM, and I can actually do that point of use consumption. So I can come in here and actually do the consumption for this particular production order. Again, if it's lot tracked or serial tracked, I can enter those lot numbers and serial numbers here, and that's actually a good use for this, because if I'm pulling a specific serial number, specific lot number, I don't want to have to write that down on paper and hand it in. I want to actually enter that here. And you can actually scan a barcode here as well if you've got a barcode, a lot number, a serial number to bring it in. And you can split that. So if I enter a lot number for a quantity of 5, it'll split that line and then let me enter a different lot number for the remaining quantity or whatever. So we can do that consumption from the shop floor as well. Down here, we've got the work instructions. So these are comments that come from the operation or the production order. So we can have customer specific instructions, so specific instructions for that order, or if we've got routing specific instructions, so things that are coming off the master routing that give me, assembly instructions or whatever the heck I have on there, I can show those here. This, in the latest version, also allows you to customize what comes in here, so you can add additional information into this with formatting, so you can make it bold or italic or stick a table in there or whatever you like. So you can actually use this to display a lot of additional information beyond just the standard comments that are coming off the routing or the production order. Now, in addition to this, we can also go in here. We can show the item picture, which we have a few people that use this. They're doing printing or something and they want a quick proof of that. The more useful one is the record links. So what this allows me to do is any documents that are linked to the production order or to the item will show up here. So if I've got an assembly drawing or I've got inspection sheet for QC or whatever, I can load those up from here on the shop floor. And of course, you get these links in here. These are standard nav record links. You get those in there using Nav Extender, right? You drag and drop them on, and then they're available on the shop client. So the record links, and then we've also got the quality inspections. So the quality inspections I mentioned, that's a full inspection module. You define your inspection checklists, and then you can assign them based on work center or product or operation or any of those different criteria that are available to you. And then you can actually record the results of this quality inspection in the shop floor. So I set up one that's very basic. I just created a bunch of different data types to illustrate the different things that you can enter. So you can set up things like drop-down lists, or more importantly, things with tolerances and ranges. So I can specify, on this particular one, it's an integer, and between 3 and 5 indicates a pass. Anything out of that, let's just do 56, indicates a fail. And I can also specify, specific values, like I can't enter a -1 on here or anything like that. So you can come in Nav, define these inspection checklist templates, and then assign them based on whatever criteria you have. And in the shop floor client, it's specific to production orders. In Nav, you can use it for pretty much any record in the system. So you can assign it to receipts or shipments or whatever the heck you like. But in here, it's production orders only. All right. Okay, so that is a lot of what I wanted to talk about on the shop floor side for capturing data. The other thing I'll mention is, we talked about that visual scheduler. So I'll just switch over to this guy. This is the prototype that I said we've had for years, and we have. And this is what it's going to look like when it's actually in the final system. So it's actually going to be a dispatch list. So if we look here, these dispatch lists, I've got a production dispatch list, which brings up the dispatch list to it's assigned to all the details that are coming up for a specific work center or a specific person. And I can click on here and I can see the BOM and the quality, and I can, do output and consumption, all that kind of stuff. And I've also got one for jobs where I can see all the job stuff, and I've got a Gantt chart for jobs. And what this will be, this scheduler will just be another dispatch list. So I can come in here, I'll be able to click on this operation and then actually clock onto it or do the consumption or do the output. So it becomes a visual dispatch list. But beyond just being a visual dispatch list, and it could be for a specific work center or whatever you got it filtered to, it also does allow me to do drag and drop. Now this is a prototype. It's not quite as pretty as the one that's in the queue right now. But what this does allow me to do is, let's say I take this thing and I want to move it out in time. I drop it, and it'll reschedule everything accordingly. And you'll notice it actually shifted it forward there, and that's just the Nav rule. So all we're doing is we're going to Nav and we're setting the start time on that operation in Nav, and Nav is forward scheduling everything else related to it, right? And here it'll backward schedule the previous operations and forward schedule all the subsequent operations. So it does give you that ability to do drag and drop, to move from one work center to another. So let's say I want to bring this guy down and drop him on that, and it'll schedule everything accordingly. So this is going to be available, and it's included in the cost, and anybody that's running the system today will get that as part of the upgrade. And we're not there's very good Gantt charts and very good scheduling packages out there that run in Nav and are very pretty. This isn't really a planning tool. This is an execution tool. So the intent of this is, the shop floor supervisor is going to come in and is going to go, geez, this work center is down today. I'm going to pull, a couple of these things off and put them on a different work center, or I'm going to, assign it to somebody else, or I'm going to shift this out because the material isn't here. It's supposed to start today, but material's not going to be here until Monday, so I'm just going to move everything out to Monday, right? So those types of things, that's what it's for, right? And I think it's very good in that capacity. All right, so that leaves me about 5 minutes left. I will just briefly talk about some of the capabilities from within Nav, some of the approval things, and then we'll stop and see if you have any questions. So, the system is great. You can enter time and everything, but that's not, going to do you any good if people are always doing things wrong and there's no approval step. So we do have the ability to do time card approvals, and it's exception based. So when a supervisor loads it up and they see the 10 time cards for the people that report to them, it'll show up in red any ones that have potential issues. They evaluate the red ones. When they're done, they hit, approve, and everything's approved. So it's a very efficient way of doing time card approvals within the system. And with the facial recognition stuff, it'll also capture a picture of when the person clocked in and when they clocked out to prevent buddy punching and things like that. We also have project level approvals. So if it's a professional services organization or construction or whatever that's doing more project-oriented labor, we can go in there and you can have a project manager do approvals for the time that are related to their project, independently of the supervisory approvals, where the guy is saying, yes, he was here 8 hours and so on and so forth. So that approval capability is fairly strong. And then when we get into payroll, we've got all that sort of thing, all the time and attendance reporting, all the shift patterns and shift scheduling capabilities are there. We talked about the safety logbook for health and safety data capture, like audits and hazard assessments, things like that. So very comprehensive capabilities within the system. Certainly, again, pricing, very a lot of value within the system. Yeah, now I'm babbling, so I'm going to stop. Brian, any further questions that we have on any of this stuff?
Yeah, we just had one come in from Roger asking if he's asking, will the visual planner work center drag and drop changes get changed back when the MPS MRP plan is regenerated?
No, because what that's doing is it's going directly into the production order and modifying the operations in the production order, and that's going to be a release production order. So MRP isn't going to pick that up, right? Because that's against a specific release production order. And incidentally, if I come in here, I'll just show you one other thing. So I actually lied. So if I go into the routing here, I will mention everything is real time. So it's no intermediate database or anything. We're communicating with NAV in real time. And that gives us the ability to track, the routing status, who's actually working on the thing, and all the unposted and posted time against the operation. So if I've got, actual time posted against this, I can actually drill down, see who did the work, was it rework, whatever. And if it's still ongoing in the shop, I can actually see the status of what's happening in the shop at any time. So I can drill down and I can see all the entries that have been made against this production order, by who, and was it rework time, was it regular? So fully integrated with the production orders. And back to this, to answer that question, when we do that drag and drop, it's actually modifying these dates here on the routing. So that's what it's actually doing. It's making a change on this, and then it's using the built-in nav logic to reschedule the other operations.
Great. We've got a few more questions coming through. A few people are asking if we're recording this presentation. Yes, we are recording the presentation, and I'll make it available to everybody. I sometimes am able to get the link out later on this afternoon, depending on how the processing goes. But if not, it'll be tomorrow morning at the latest. I'll shoot everybody an email, and then you can share that out as well. Question from Sarah. Can you use handheld mobile devices for time logging?
So we have some, can you hear me okay? I got a message saying my audio was down.
You'd cut out for a moment, a couple minutes back, but right now it sounds good.
Okay, yeah, people don't need to hear that much of me anyway. So in 2016 and up, we have phone client pages, but in older versions, no, the only thing we would support is a tablet. The screen resolution on phones for this interface is too small, but it works fine on a tablet. And again, in 2016 and up, you can use the NAV phone client and enter the data directly into that.
All right, question from John. Does it post consumption and output from the shop screen?
Yeah, we kind of covered that previously. Again, with the limited user license, it doesn't. You would either have to set it up as a full user license, which is kind of pricey, or set up a job queue to post periodically, like every minute or two, something like that.
Okay. Roger's asking, can you show the phone client, or is there some place that people can access a demo?
No, if you're interested in that, I can show it separately. I don't have it actually running on this. No, sorry, I won't mess with it. I could show you in the browser, but yeah.
Okay.
I'm happy to show you on a separate demo if you're interested.
Yeah, so Roger, ping us if you wanna see that. We'll set it up for you. Question: someone's asking, can you run the Gantt from NAV?
The scheduler piece? No, so we're not going to, at least initially, make this available from within NAV. You'll have to go into the shop client and run it. So even if it is somebody in the office, I mean, they can clock into the shop client and review this graphically. But for the time being, we're gonna leave it in the shop client.
Okay, I've got.
Oh, and incidentally, I should mention, just to clarify something. Not everybody will be allowed to drag and drop. That'll be permissions based. So you don't want your average welder coming in here and accidentally moving things around or dragging and dropping. That drag and drop capability is going to be a supervisory thing that people will have to be assigned permission to be able to do. Right. So people won't accidentally move things around.
Okay, I've got one last question here. If others have more questions, now it's the time to send them through. Do you integrate with ADP?
Yes, so we'll integrate with pretty much any payroll package. If it's Serenic or our payroll package, it's built into NAV. It's a direct transfer. If it's ADP or Ceridian or any of those Paychex or Payworks or any of those guys, it's a file transfer. So we'll generate a file and you upload that into the payroll system and you're good to go. And again, that file will be grouped, will already be summarized by overtime, regular time, vacation, whatever codes you've got defined in the system. So no more manual overtime calculations or anything like that.
At this time, I just want to say on behalf of InsightWorks, a big thank you to all of you for joining us today. I do hope you found the presentation worthwhile, and I hope to see you again on a future webinar. This concludes the presentation. Thanks, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.